They were using
Yeah.
normal cups, but
So yeah, it's more. So we are now launching this event. So dear colleagues and dear guests, welcome to the International Environment House, and thank you for joining us. Also for who is online watching the video on YouTube, this guest discussion at the International Environment House on the reindeer herders' challenging situation. Where we are welcoming today at the Environment House leading experts on this issue. And our guests will be introduced by our colleague Ersin Essen of the United Nations Environment Programme. He's from the Office for Europe, where he's a program management officer focusing on the development and implementation of biodiversity-related projects. Ersin will also provide the context of this meeting. So Ersin, with that, the floor is yours.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Diana. Of course, this event is happening thanks to the Geneva Environment Network for organizing this meeting for us, because we thought that this is really a great opportunity to have Professor Svein Matheson and Mr. Anders Oskal together with the delegation while they are in Geneva to have this exchange, because we know that the nomadic communities usually have very critical and important role in sustainable management of the nature, from biodiversity conservation to climate change resilience, but also management of the land as well. From that perspective, of course, UNEP's engagement with the International Center for Reindeer Herders is quite old. Maybe I'm the newest person in this engagement. We have been working for over 2 years for how to really collaborate and see the first of all learnings, the indigenous knowledge that is gathered from this community be usable and useful for the global community. That is one objective that this collaboration is happening, but also on the other side to help the reindeer herders on the new thinking on sustainable land management. So we received a generous grant from Global Environment Facility to engage with the reindeer herders in the Northern Hemisphere, in the Arctic region. But what we have also thought that it is important to also put important content and engagement, and the major opportunity for that is how to look at different landscapes and identify how this sustainable land management and indigenous knowledge can be really beneficial from other nature-related issues. So from that understanding, a new project was born with the name of Managing Peatlands in Mongolia and Enhancing the Resilience of Pastoral Ecosystems and Livelihoods of Nomadic Herders. So the project is mainly trying to look at two different issues, but in the end trying to bring the different disciplines and perspectives for one outcome, how to really develop sustainably, that is achieving the SDG goals. So the project's main objective to develop the capacity for enhancing the ecosystem services of the peatlands, specifically in Mongolia, and enhancing the capacity of indigenous reindeer herders to reduce the land degradation and improve the provision of ecosystem services and increase community of resilience. And today's meeting is much more on the second part. That is how to really, what is the need? First, we need to understand from our distinguished guest, what is the need of the community, how they are already coping with that, how they are supporting especially the youth, and how or what also they need from the international community on further collaboration. In order to explain this, I have on my right side distinguished Professor Svein Matheson. He is the head of the University of the Arctic Institute for Circumpolar Reindeer Husbandry at the International Center for Reindeer Husbandry. He's also the professor and researcher at Sami University of Applied Sciences. Of course, Mr. Matheson has not only experience in his own country, but his working experience extends from Russian Siberia to Mongolia, South Georgia, Alaska, and Sapmi. He has published definitely more than 100 papers. It's, I think, 130 papers. And the themes are changing from adaptation to climate change to resilience. And they have recently, together with Mr. Oskal, wrote a new book on the polar sciences, reindeer husbandry, adaptation to the changing Arctic. It is just recently published. And if I'm not wrong, it can be downloaded free of charge. Yes. From the Springer publishing company. So please, colleagues, if you are interested, most probably if you search the name, the polar sciences, reindeer husbandry, adaptation to the, I'm just repeating, adaptation to the changing Arctic, I'm sure you will find the book. Then on my left-hand side, Mr. Anders Oskal, he's the Secretary General of the World Reindeer Herders, but he's also the Executive Director of the International Center for Reindeer Husbandry. Mr. Oskal is not only leading, but also he is a reindeer herder in the community in northern Norway with a graduate degree in business. He has been working, and he's not really unfamiliar with the UN family. He has been engaging with various diplomatic and also UN-related initiatives, including the Arctic Council, but also he's supporting he's member of the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism for the UN Commission on Food Security. He's also a member of the Norwegian government's Nature Risk Commission. And before all these cross-cutting roles, and he was also a business development in reindeer herding and indigenous livelihood. So that will be also, I think, important to get his reflections from that perspective. So let me start with you, Professor Matheson. Maybe the very first question is, how do you see the current situation from the nature perspective, and how do you see the nomadic herders are being affected from the climate change, from other environmental challenges, and what is the plan? Let's start with that. Okay. Maybe
we can start with those.
Maybe we can start with a few, at least introductory words, Anders.
Yes, of course. First of all, let me say that we are very, very happy to be here, and we would like to thank the organizers, Ersin and his team at UNEP, and also the Geneva Environmental Network for hosting us here. We think it is a very timely issue now to address the situation of reindeer herding peoples in a time of very great changes in the Arctic and subarctic region. We have, of course, our organizations have a history that goes back to 1990. World Reindeer Herders is a civil society organization for all the reindeer herding peoples in the world. And the Center for Reindeer Husbandry was established by Norway as a Norwegian state entity to support the international work of reindeer herders. And that came out from processes in the Arctic Council. So it is our organizations are very linked to the Arctic Council as an outset, but as in pointed out, we have also been working extensively with the UN, different parts of the UN system. And reindeer herding also belongs to another larger family, we could say. As nomadic pastoralists, we are also, how to say, belonging to a much larger family of pastoralists in the world. And we are, of course, excited that in 2026, the UN General Assembly have decided to have for the first time UN year also for pastoralists. And that will be directly relevant, we think, to our project and our endeavors. That is within the scope of the project period. We also could say, if I may offer a few words initially, something about reindeer herding. We all, as humans, tend to see the world not as it is, but as we are. And realizing, of course, that most people on this planet are not reindeer herders, I would say a few words about reindeer herding as a phenomena, as that is essential for our path forward also in this project. And just to show you this map, it shows the extent of reindeer herding areas in the world. The North Pole is in the center here, by the way. So it's spread across 10 national states in the Arctic and subarctic region. It's a circumpolar phenomena. What is also important to say is that we are really talking about the diversity of indigenous peoples here. 24 different ethnic groups, indigenous peoples that base their lives on following the reindeer. Here we have grouped them in language groups just to illustrate the diversity involved. And most of them, if not all of them, are today struggling and striving with some challenges that are common for us all. Reindeer herding, seeing as how our peoples are indigenous and have spent a long time in the Arctic, in the far north, we also carry not only a unique way of life and an industry, a livelihood, but also, in fact, an Arctic civilization. We could think of reindeer herding as a type of original civilization of the north, a nomadic, based on mobility, nomadism. And that is the lens by which we should try to understand reindeer herding, which is a wider lens than the narrow confines of, let's say, agriculture. This is different. And the essence of reindeer herding is mobility, to use mobility to utilize marginal and variable resources. This is true for reindeer herding, but it's equally true for other nomadic pastoralists. And the connection to the landscapes, as Elsin mentioned, is very, very clear. In our case, we follow the reindeer. And in so doing, it is clear for reindeer herding peoples that we always knew that man cannot control nature. Rather, we try to come to terms with it, come to an agreement with it. That is how our cultures have been formed from time immemorial up until this very day. And now is a time of change. When we talk of the needs, we can see that climate change is happening on average 4 times as fast in the Arctic as compared to the global average. And those who are most dependent on nature are also quickly most vulnerable when that nature is changing. And we spend, reindeer herders live our lives in a world that has snow in it for 9 months a year. So understanding snow and living with snow change is essential. And we can see that things are changing in this regard. where extreme events, for instance, is really challenging. But also fires. A warmer Arctic means also a drier Arctic. And there are a great concern now with the rapid growth of fires, as can be observed, for instance, in eastern Siberia, but also in Scandinavia. And consequences are no less dire than those experienced by our brothers and sisters in the Amazon. So this is a real concern. But a more urgent issue is also that of land degradation, encroachment. This picture shows you reindeer herders in Western Siberia. But maybe, yeah, there you go. Just to say, there are some goal conflicts too. I show you a picture of windmills. Where do you build windmills as a mitigation? Well, you build it where there's wind, and that's usually in the mountainous areas in the summer pastures. And then you can see that these areas are in fact very, very important for the reindeer. Because it's the areas where the snow cover retreats first, and so for calving grounds this is essential. So you have a type of conflict between the rights and ancestral use of reindeer herders of these lands with encroachments of different kinds, and now especially mitigation efforts. Windmills, hydroelectrical power, biofuel, all of these alternatives to fossil fuels are also a challenge. And then, of course, the combination of drivers is a serious concern. But as also IPCC has pointed out, protection of the grazing land is the most important adaptive strategy for reindeer herders under climate change. So that also goes into, of course, land management and land management processes. And this is a challenge. This is from an article we had in Nature. That one thing is that you have these impacts and combined effects of these impacts, but the lack of voice in development of governance strategies, adaptation, is a serious concern. And that is why, we need to find ways to build capacity. As Ersin also mentioned, well, change does mean both challenges and opportunities. And in one sense, of course, with Arctic change happening as fast, there is a potential for also reindeer herding societies and peoples to be seen now. But also there are some opportunities linked to other things. I mean, a basic question for all civilizations, if you will, is how we can use our own knowledge to develop our own societies. Can there be a future for our peoples based on our own resources and understanding and our own knowledge, our own youth? And we think there could be, and one exciting area is that of food. So we've had an Arctic Council project on food, a youth project, to see how we can use food to adapt to a changing Arctic, the consequences that we can all see and that we all live as reindeer herders every day. So how can we use our own knowledge to better resist, to create resilient societies, robust societies for the future? And just to mention, Ersin of course knows this, but we made a report to the Arctic Council that won the prize as the world's best food book in 2018. It shows the potential here. It was made by 50 indigenous youth. We also can see that the current food trends matches almost perfectly with the food systems of Arctic indigenous peoples. So mindful of the challenges of food security, there is a great potential also for local economic development within our societies. So all food trends point in this direction: sustainability, the health and well-being, origin, transparency, animal welfare, and so on and so forth. So it is encouraging in that regard. Yeah, I see there was something wrong with the slide here, but the point is that we try to provide educational opportunities for our young people, building their competence, their confidence, and their community. And this will be some work that we will try to continue also within the scopes of this project. It's very exciting, I think. Great potential to have indigenous youth frame their own futures in their own voices and manage their own destinies. Just quickly mention that we also have some tools to do this. We've built a nomadic food lab. And just to show you a picture from the Stockholm Plus 50 event where we put it up just outside the Congress Hall. There's Sara Elvira addressing the crowd. It's a very large tent combined with a very modern Bocuse d'Or kitchen to have a platform for our young people to express themselves, to work with food and food systems, to have better futures for our peoples. We went to Rome with it for the World Food Day. I will be going there next week. We will return there, but a way in which we can focus on our food systems for the future. Yeah. I will, as our youth have called it, this indigenous food lab is probably the coolest kitchen in the world, as they say. Just to finally, just to say a couple of words about the agreement that reindeer herding peoples have with the reindeer. As we are taught when we are young, from time immemorial, we've had an agreement between reindeer herders, our peoples, and the reindeer, where we would provide for each other. So the reindeer would provide for us everything that we need: food, clothing, shelter, transportation, security, even perhaps our way of our worldviews. And in return, we will provide for the reindeer protection from predators, access to pastures. We will take care of it. There's animal welfare at the core of this. But I will say that in the time that we are now in, we can see historical changes for our peoples who have a very long history in the north. And we can see that we have some challenges upholding our part of this agreement, this social contract, if you will, between man and the reindeer. Or if you could even frame it wider and say that it's a social contract between humanity and nature. So that is what I wanted to say, but just repeat, we are very delighted to be here, and we thank you, Ersin, and your team, and the Geneva Environmental Network for hosting us, and we are excited to proceed from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anders. If you allow me, I will say Anders, as I'm always calling you. Of course, the very interesting thing is that if people wants to see where the reindeer herders live, I think they can even look at the UN logo, that it is really nicely showing the landscape. Of course, you have mentioned very important points. I'm not going to summarize. I think we really need to give some room for questions, but what is important that you brought that I want to emphasize is that sometimes even the environment projects may harm environment, as you have nicely put. So that's why within UNEP, and we know that the other sister agencies are giving this environmental and social safeguards importance. And I think this is another lessons learned that we have to look at all, including the environment projects, from the environmental and the social safeguards, whether they are really bulletproof, purely providing the needed services or creating some harm. That is one important lessons that you brought. The other important thing that you have highlighted, which usually the nomadic communities are considered very hierarchical, and the age is important, but I think you have also changed it. The youth is part of the leadership. We always see whenever you are organizing events, important meetings, we see that the reindeer herder community is bringing the youth as part of the decision-making process. I think we also have to learn from this, because this is an important but recently starting practice that youth has right, power, and I think knowledge, if they are provided opportunities to make decisions about their future. I think you are nicely putting this into the picture. So is the presentation ready? Then let me give the floor to Professor Matesen. So please.
Should I use this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so nice that you invited us here to Geneva. It's fantastic to be back in Switzerland and Geneva. We hope to bring forward some of our messages, some of our worries, and you see also Anders with some opportunities. We are still framing the project, which is going on for the next 4 years. But we really like how you have put the name of this event today, Reindeer Herding and Resilience. I think that's our conclusion. That's the core, what we like to look into. This is me. I'm a biologist by training, and reindeer herding and resilience, as Sien said, is a part of a bigger Mongolian reindeer herding cooperation, and we will gradually find out how we are going to work together. We are circumpolar, as you said. It covers the whole UN flag. We will make sure next time, Anders, that we have the UN flag in the middle of this map. So the gender-sensitive knowledge base is the core of this new project. And I have been struggling with this, you know. But then my colleagues here, Sara Elvira, Marina, and Issa, they know that I'm trying to discuss this with them all the time. What do we really know? What do we really mean by this gender sensitive knowledge base, you know? And that's been a nice walk into. So here, for example, I'm with the Chukchi people a couple of years ago. Anders and me worked with them. And it was clear division of responsibilities. So, for example, all the women were responsible for not killing the animals, but butchering and slaughtered animals, you know. And there was some deep reasons for this. It was the food security and it was the food sovereignty. So I turned to Issa and said, do Norway implement the Sami women's knowledge about land management today. What did you say, Svein? They said, because we don't include the women's knowledge into the land management. Even the last year's Supreme Court decision about a huge windmill case never distinguished the differences, and actually there was a value of the different genders knowing about. So that's where we are, and we're going to move here very slowly into make sure that we, because this is about indigenous knowledge, is about indigenous science, but it's a gender perspectives, and I think we are moving from complexity to fun. It's going to be just great fun to look at that like this. And we're going to have, as I said initially, strong cooperation with Mongolia. And this is Issa. Do you see him there? Is me in the background. You have a very nice hat on, Issa, there. You see him there? So this is in Mongolia, where we were providing the cooperation. We had a partnership meetings with stakeholders. This is and is me, and it's a big reindeer, and so it's actually up here on the border to Russia. UB is here, Ulaanbaatar. This is China. So here is the land of the Dukha reindeer herders. They're not so many, but they are important because they are the southern reindeer herding community in the world, and because they are very close to both a climatic and socio-economic tipping point, you know. And we have been working there for many, many years, trying to find some way to help them to establish, to continue to have a sustainable development. They have a boom of tourism into their activities. So yes, we feel responsible that we will have them there in the core of this project. And they are very strong on gender sensitive knowledge. Very, very strong, you know. And there will come something about traditional knowledge out of this. And they are riders. They use the reindeer for riding in Mongolia to get around, to manage the landscapes they're riding. So breed the reindeer means breeding for riding, means, as Anna says, mobility, but you ride. And food, if the land is degraded, what's happened with the milk production? Milk, cheese, yogurt from reindeer is a major source for the food production in the Dukha community. And here you see already nobody has introduced these women about land degradation and milk production. So the first course we are going to have is land degradation, because there is a lot of mining interest around them, and milk production of reindeer. You think it's cool, but it's also the knowledge, which will help us later to provide a better management regimes. So this is one of the Dukhas we have worked with for many, many years. And of course, China, Alagoya, Gunhe, where Anders has been responsible for developing the cooperation with the Evenki people. We had a meeting with the director of the Polar Institute in Shanghai yesterday. And they are very eager that also in this project about reindeer herding and resilience, we also need the Chinese component. They are really eager to. So we have been there. You have been there too, Isa. And of course, we are living in Samiland, which is the territory of the Sami people between Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. We have, because of actually today, the global challenges, but we also have to look forward to make sure that we take the world back again, and we're going to continue to develop strategies for sustainability. And there are peoples there around who's suffering, who needs support. So this is as an NHS perspective. You've never seen Sweden look like this before. So what is land degradation? UN has defined it. And Sara Elvira, she is the president of Saminora, the youth organization in Sweden. They have defined it differently. And Reindeer Hood is in Norway a little bit different. What is land degradation? So I think that's where we have to start, to make a concept report or paper on which we'd like to have you with us to develop the concept of land degradation, to make sure that we get both women and men's perspectives, all the different way of knowing. What is the gender-sensitive knowledge base for enhanced resilience? We look at resilience as part of adaptation. You know, they are so interweaved into each other. And a lot of these communities are past the tipping point that disappeared. And you see that in the Springer book now. I mean, several of the Reindeer Hooders community has gone extinct already. So the project we have is a kind of wake-up call. You know, does it really matter? Yes, we think, because this is where we are on a lot of environmental issues globally, you know. So this is the project as Marina in our delegation has provided. So we are component 3 in this huge project, a global knowledge base and capacity for herding contribution to the sustainable land management. And we have 3 different working packages: sustainable landscape management approaches institutionalized for global reindeer herding husbandry. That's going to be the major work we are doing. We have a lot of questions how we are going to move that today. And then we have 13 different courses. And actually already we did one course at Harvard Kennedy School with 20 herders 3 weeks ago. Sarah Elvira, she was one of the students. And we had a negotiation course at Fletcher School of Diplomacy. I mean, when you meet a mining company, how could you read their mind? Do we need to have we need activism, but we need also to understand each other. You don't need a war always, you know. Is there some way we could find way of negotiating? And then the last one, how do we disseminate? How could we use Arctic Council? How could we use the year of pastoralism? The World Reindeer Herders has their assembly in Mongolia 2026, which will be a part of this project. We are coming from Geneva, the international program for cooperation and planning of the Arctic. We are invited to be endorsed in that kind of consortium. So we will outreach to a lot of people. Sami reindeer husbandry is very modernized today compared to it went through a huge rationalization in the 70s, which is good and bad. This is how we are thinking about the project. We are framing adaptation to rapid change by thinking resilience, you know. This is Marina's chapter in our Springer book. You should read that, you know, because, and here you see climate change affect pastures, freezing and thawing cycles, changing the species in the pasture land, and the whole, as you see here, vegetation is changing. That picture is taken 1882, this one. And then last year, no, 1882, and then I went back to exactly the same spot last year. So because of the warming, because of the CO2, there's enormous growth of the vegetation. So in our community where we are living, we have 80,000 reindeer now it's difficult for the herders to pass those critical points. That means that there will be more reindeer other places, and you will see degradation. And it's difficult to read those changes if you don't see and understand those vegetation changes. Anders talked about windmill. That's enormous issue of conflict. The Norwegian government is, I think, will be very interesting to work with us to try to find solutions. Also on the gender-sensitive knowledge base, I think you guys have given us a gift, because that knowledge base has never been used in the conflict solutions, you know. So please help us, but I think, as I said, it could be fun. Mining, you know, I mean, there is a need for all these minerals in the electrification of Europe, of America. This is a gold mine. And here is also a gold mine with all the challenges because of the water. The gold mine needs so much water into the pasture land. And you need to have infrastructure like railroads to get them products out. Like here, you can't see it, but there's actually a herd of reindeer crossing the road. Here there's a herd of reindeer in the middle of the gold mine, you know. You could adapt, but could you be resilient? Probably not, you know. You will change your identity. You will change your whole structure of the nomadic community to be something else, you know. You will adapt. You will transform to something. So this is pipelines, which crosses most grazing lands today in Norway and in the east, and it brings with it a lot of activities, and but we have to deal with it. This is what's happening today. This is not a dream. This is not planned project. It's happening in the reindeer herders territory today, and this is what we mean have to be a part of understanding land degradation. And of course, hydroelectric power plants lines to bring the electricity out is also disturbing the herding. So it adds up, you know. And then grazing land disappears. This is our cooperation with Grid Arendal many, many years ago on, so green is still pastures. It's the Globio mapping, as you know, and we have further developed the Globio system together with Grid Arendal, and now we are operating that, and we are going to deliver that as a part of our GIS mapping on a global mapping system of the reindeer herding pastures. So you see, in 2030, we see, in particularly in the Scandinavian countries, huge losses forever. You won't get it back. So we are kind of saying, please stop up. Listen to each other a little bit now, while we still are able to talk together. And this is where we are living. This is the northern country of Norway, Finnmark. We are living here. This is 2011 infrastructure development. This is infrastructure development plan for the future. So with new gas fields, with new oil fields, there will be new cabins, there will be new of everything. And reindeer herders are more and more squashed to be sedentarists, no nomadic actions anymore. But we will see along that line a lot of conflicts, which is not really necessary if we build competence. We don't need to really build competence, but we should share the competence we have. So, okay, that's of course affect biodiversity, but it also, we have done some pilot training of participatory mapping. So in China, in Mongolia, in Samiland, also in Greenland, we are going to have participatory mapping. And this is what he went also to Harvard this year. one of colleagues of Sarah Elvira. So they're drawing their own mapping, you know, the mental maps of the pastures related to everything around them. And a lot of information is coming out of that. And we have some very strong partners to bring into that in the future. Because Anders mentioned the fires. All over is burning in the summer, all over. This is in Sakaryakuta. I mean, we are not there now, but it still will burn this summer. Last summer, it was a territory of Portugal burned, all grazing land for reindeer herders. This is the number of fires, goes from 120 to 2,000. And it's methane, you know, it's the melting of the permafrost, it's the release of the methane, self-ignition. A lot of these places is not people, you know. So that's an enormous impact on the grazing land in Mongolia too, which we have to deal with one way or another, you know. Of course, when you talk to Sami reindeer herders in Norway, they say, with one of the interviews Marina has in her chapter in the Springbergs, they say, but Marina, we have been we have done what the Norwegian state told us to do. We adapt, there is nothing more to adapt to. That's why it's so smart to use this social ecological resilience, to move it a little bit further, because people think about adaptation as a part of transformation into a nomadic, from a nomadic to a mainstream Norwegian society. That's how they think. That's why they are very resistant to be join an adaptation strategy. So I turn to Issa just finally, because how the herd looks in the middle of this loss of grazing land is also important. And he is an expert on herd structure and traditional knowledge. And what kind of herd should we have in Mongolia in future? What kind of herds should we have? Should we still have moving herds? And for example, in Norway, reindeer herders were very, this is Norway, this is the percentage of females in the herds. In the old days, that's the red line, it's about 50-50 females and males in the herd. So Norway said, we are going to improve the economy of reindeer husbandry. So you see here, I think it's 2013 or something like that, then it's 93% females in the herd, paid by subsidies. You know?
To maximize meat production.
Yes, but by doing that, Issa's point is, you will degrade a land which you didn't use in that way before, you know? So you take the land away, and then the state we will maximize the meat production by increasing number of females. In a way, the nomadic traditional knowledge, if you ask your mother, Issa, she never would have done that if she has decided that herself.
Well, if I can comment on that, the herd structure and how the land is used are very much linked together. And on this land degradation, well, we have land systems. The system that we have is that how we herd the reindeer are on different types of areas during the different times of year. But when you then go and increase the total number of females, you know, you have, this is your set land and where you are, and then you increase your females, that means that to get more calves. And that means that you will automatically increase reindeer into the area that you have the least of, the calving grounds, the birthplace. So with this structure also, and this is a structure that is put I can almost say like forced upon us with the subsidy systems to make that to make it so that that you will actually start losing land, or how can I say, or start losing the strength of your herd to survive.
Resilience.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So you see, we are also going to have that perspective into this.
But also when you were talking about this, I took some about these women's gender issues. We also have that there are no, in my area, there are almost no women working with reindeer herding today. And again, also because of the Reindeer Act that they made in 1978. They took away the rights for women to have their own entity, to make their own business.
This is Norway we're talking about.
Yeah, it's not there. I know most about my own area. So in that case, you also took away a lot of knowledge and a lot of the work that women were doing, like the milking of the reindeer. It's all gone in Norway. Nobody milks reindeer anymore because the women were taken away and put in the towns. So we have like a loss of knowledge that could be taken back again. And we see now more and more girls are getting back to reindeer herding, are taking, because today they cannot stop girls. The government cannot say that girls cannot own their own entity anymore. They could in 1978, but not anymore. So girls are coming back. So yeah, so it is really good. I think that there is hope to not go back to before 1978, but to reinstate or take back knowledge, and because we have different knowledge between genders. So I think that we can, and with this project, I think we have to look at these issues also very much.
Good. So I will kind of round up, and so there's a lot of challenges. We will have a global assessment. We will run courses also with Harvard and Fletcher. Also have Mongolians and Chinese to participate. And we'd like to develop a dialogue here for development, for enhanced resilience. And we have some methods to bring people around the fireplace to talk. If you stop talk, you're gone. So that's, after all these years, this is the first time we are here, but we are so happy. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sven. I'm not going to wrap up because I want to give some time to questions if there is any from the floor. Yes, Wanda, please.
Thank you very much. This is fascinating. Fascinating to listen to you. One thing that comes to my mind is basically there is a specific UNEA resolution from last year. In fact, it is the very first one. UNEA 5.1 is actually talking about animal welfare, the nexus between animal welfare, environment, and sustainable development. Many of what Anders talked about, I think this should be captured in the report that UNEP is doing, and I hope you'll be engaged in that. It also links to another resolution, UNEA 417 on pastoralists, which also has a very interesting link to that. And my other appeal is we do have a number of indigenous communities who are accredited to UNEP. If you are not accredited, please do. We'd be happy, more than happy to help you with that. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Wondi. Before you give reactions, Are there any questions online? If not, okay, we didn't give the opportunity. Maybe Anders, would you like to first react to Wendy's points about the Guinea?
Yes, of course. You know, there are 7 social cultural regions for indigenous peoples within the UN system. We belong to one of those regions, the Arctic, and we have a very good collaboration, and we have been able to participate in UNEA and other UN events together with our friends, in the sense that they have had the accreditation. I will take you up on your challenge, or offer rather, and say that World Reindeer Herders would like to apply to be accredited. We have ECOSOC accreditation, but we will certainly, it's appropriate to do that now. And it's very good for us also to work in a larger context, as I touched upon, with Year for Pastoralists, and also within something which is called the World Alliance of Mobile Indigenous Peoples, which is an attempt to organize nomadic pastoralists on a global scale. It's not easy, but we are looking for ways in which we can do that. And that also offers in itself a great opportunity for replication of the results of this project and our initiatives here. So we will be very happy to try to bring that forth. Thank you.
Mentioned the Animal Welfare Resolution 5.1 is actually, the UNEP is in the process of producing a report. So it would be very important to have this kind of perspectives. Animal welfare is not just abusing. I've seen with land degradation, the way you described how reindeers are squeezed. These are good examples for other countries also. Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't wrap up what Professor Mathesen mentioned, but it's always a big pleasure meeting with you, because I know that I will learn new things, that you have already bring the new concept that I was not aware of, is this concept of tipping point from the social perspective. I think as the environmentalists, we are always looking from the climate tipping points or the environmental tipping points, but the social tipping points are also quite critical, because we always argue that the people are part of the nature. So that is, I think, one new thing that I learned from you. The other thing, of course, you are already using the words nicely, smartly, elegantly, but also you want to be very clear on that. You brought very important thing to define the land degradation, because we know that the definitions also bring the solutions or the challenges. I think this is also important, that we should never take the definitions as it is. We always have to look at what the wording really means for that community. That is another message that I'm taking from you. The other important thing that you have brought together with Isa, that although you are the modern science part of this community, but you are also highlighting us that sometimes the modern science, like the optimization, might really lead to wrong decisions. So we also have to always keep in mind that the indigenous knowledge is somehow need to be checked, if there is any, to look at whether the modern science is really giving the correct solutions, because we know that the other one has been tested quite a long time, so we can always benefit from that. The most important thing related to this project that what we observe is that it is bringing the science, the leadership, the youth together, because we don't know how to do that yet on this new development paradigm, in order to adapt to this new development paradigm and bringing the environment much more strongly. I think this is a good case that we are also going to learn from this project, that how the modern science, how the indigenous knowledge is is linked with each other and feeding each other, because we have seen that you are also using the data and knowledge to argue very strongly against the challenges that you are facing. So, of course, the project is going to, we believe that the knowledge like the Earth observations, because the communities are small, the Earth observations, the data analysis, those type of things are very important, that it should be also be the tools that the communities be able to use. The project is also going to, I think, provide that offer to mainly liberalize and also make free of charge of the availability of the data that the communities can use. So thanks again for being with us. This is just starting of the journey, and I'm hoping that we will have maybe in 2 years another meeting again here just to report back what we have done so far. So thanks, colleagues, for being with us. But I want to give the floor now to Diana. But before giving to her, I also want to thank to the the Geneva Environment Network, for organizing this event. It was really a great opportunity for us to learn from our colleagues, and you provided the venue for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Arsene. I just wanted to add a point. I'm curious. It's strange that you haven't mentioned it, Wendy. In a few days from now, we are also celebrating International Women's Day, and I think some of the points you have mentioned. He's our gender focal point. That's why I'm looking at him. It's also, I think, some of the elements that you have brought here into discussion. It's always an important day where we can bring those things up. And actually, we will be celebrating here International Women's Day also with some discussions, and we might pick up some of the points that you have mentioned here in that discussion. It's 8th of March for those who don't remember the date. It's a real pleasure to have you here, and indeed, anytime you're in Geneva, you're welcome to come here and to other venues around Geneva. There are many opportunities to engage. Environment in Geneva is high on the agenda of many international processes. So there are many ways to bring up some of the points we had in the discussion today. So thank you very much to all. And also to who joined us online on YouTube, and to who was here in the room with us, and to the team who has been helping technically to make you also going live. Thank you.
Yeah, we hosted him a few
Okay,
years back.
yeah.
So yes.
And we looked at the report, and it's one of the topics there is about it's really about